No, thank you very much, branch convener, Comrade Secretary General. I think what I've noticed today is that we have a lot of new members in the branch. And it's a very good thing because it shows that the organization is growing here in the Vaal University of Technology. The only con, Comrade Nobala, is that these comrades who were here before, they are singing these old songs that the new members don't know. So the new members now, they are unable to keep up with your songs, Comrade Convener, because you have been singing them from Fees Must Fall. Now they want new energetic songs, the ones that they see on TikTok. But as we go throughout our lecture, we're going to deal decisively with that. We're very proud to see a branch that is able to attract new members, because there are many people who keep sending us resignations even though they are not even members. They just wake up in the morning, they send resignations straight to the Secretary General's office, but they are not members. So when I see someone resigning, and then I come to the Vaal University of Technology, I see 100 new members, I know that our organization is still intact. We don't care about anyone who says they are leaving. Here is proof that our organization is fine. So we want to congratulate and commend this branch for engaging in the 100K membership campaign of the EFF Students Command, which seeks to grow the student command quantitatively. But we cannot only grow a movement quantitatively, comrades. We must also be able to grow our movement qualitatively. What do we mean by that? We ought to have sessions of this nature, not only from the national leadership, but we must have sessions of this nature even amongst yourselves as branch members and branch leaders, where you educate yourselves about the EFF and the EFF Students Command. Because when you educate yourself about the EFF, you also learn and get to understand what it is that you have joined. Because, Comrade Nopala, there are people who are claiming to leave us now, and they say they are leaving because of the immigration policy of the EFF. You can see that this person did not know what they joined. Because if this person knew what it is that they joined, they would understand that from the get-go, the founding manifesto of the EFF is clear on the unity of the African continent. So you must have political education sessions, and we have come here to the Vaal University of Technology to share with you. We're not just here to lecture, but we're here to share ideas with you on the current dynamics in our country, in our continent, and in the world. So I want to take this opportunity to greet all of you, the branch leadership, the provincial leadership that is here, the leaders of the EFF that are here at a regional and provincial level, the ground forces, the fighters, and all students of the Vaal University of Technology. Comrades, the officials of the EFF Students Command asked me to reflect on the greatest tragedy of a country called Burkina Faso. They asked me to reflect on the great betrayal. They asked me this because they said there are people and so-called leaders who have been or are leaving the EFF and betraying the struggle of economic freedom in our lifetime. They asked me to draw parallels, mask no difficulties, and tell no lies, and see what is it that we can learn from former liberation movements about betrayal within the struggle. Comrades, I then asked the Secretary General of the EFF Students Command and said, who are these leaders who are leaving the EFF or who are betraying the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime? When she began to list them, I said, Comrade SG, I am hearing you mention people here, but no one has left the EFF from these names that you are mentioning. She looked at me very shocked and puzzled to say, but what do you mean? I said, when a nobody leaves the organization, it means that no one has left the organization. So all these people who have been posturing and claiming to leave our movement, they have not left us, no one has left us, because it means from the get-go, they never knew what it is they were engaged in when they joined the struggle for economic freedom in our lifetime. But I then said, I will come to the Vaal University of Technology and reflect on Burkina Faso, because that is a very important and historical event in the politics of our continent and the politics of the globe. And we'll try to spend as little time to speak about domestic issues, but we're going to try to reflect on this very historic tragedy of the great betrayal that comes from within. I know that the first years is needs up a room in so Makawane. I will ask you to be very patient with me. I am not going to follow my notes as I had written them, because some of these things we must be able to explain them such that Wongumdu is able to understand what it is that we're talking about. So who is this Thomas Sankara that you saw on the post? Thomas Sankara, comrades, started his political life at a very junior age, not different to what you comrades are engaged in here at the Vaal University of Technology. He went to be a junior officer in the army of what was then called the Upper Volta. So you will know that many African countries had different names based on who had colonized them. So there was a Berlin conference which said where the world superpowers, your Belgiums, your France, your Britain, your Germany, they sat and divided Africa to say, this will be my territory, this will be my colony, this will be my space. And they started to give it their own names. So it was called Upper Volta, what is today called Burkina Faso. I don't know why South Africa has not changed its name. It just shows that there is no true independence here in South Africa. So as a member at a very young age and a junior officer, he was radicalized even as a student activist when he went to Madagascar. So he joined a lot of protest action, he joined a lot of acts of advocacy, even at an institutional levels against the colonial administrations. So Thomas Sankara was a very vocal young person. So when I speak about Thomas Sankara at his early ages, I want you as a young comrade in the EFF and a young fighter to be able to see yourself in a person like Thomas Sankara. Because he did not do anything that is extraordinary that you comrades are currently engaged in at a campus level when you joined and decided to join the struggle for economic freedom. He went on and was appointed in the upper military ranks of government. I'm going to quickly run through his early life so that I can be able to get to the core content of the day. He went and served in government, but he criticized the administration, even the one that had come after, on a lot of things, that developmental questions that he believed that the Upper Volta or the administration of Upper Volta, even people who had called themselves liberation leaders, were not dealing with key issues of nationalization, key issues of women emancipation, key issues of trying to seek African independence away from the colonialism of the colonial superpowers. He then came in through a successful coup. I'm now fast-tracking the history, where he could in 1983, August, he came in at the age of 33. At the age of 33, Thomas Sankara came in through a coup. He led and he renamed Upper Volta and called it Burkina Faso. In other words, the land of upright people, or the land of peaceful people, or the land of honest people. So that is an activity that most African liberation movements do. That when you take power, after a colonial administration, there are important things that you must do which seeks to re-identify your country and the people of that country. For example, when you take over, you can't sing the same national anthem which was being sung by the colonial administration. When you take over, you can't use the same flag that was being used by the colonial administration. When you take over, you can't use the same name which was being used by the colonial administration. You ought to restructure the entire country at a symbolic level, because the symbolism is extremely important in the struggle for liberation. So this happened in many African countries. You look at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia. Many other African countries that came in and changed. The Congo, it was changed, the Angolas, many other African nations where when the leaders came in, they changed everything. But you comrades are made to sing Distem, watching Springboks there at Ellis Park, Comrade Colvina, next to white people, singing Distem as if Distem was not sung when the apartheid security forces were busy torturing the black activists and students of 76. So when he came in, Thomas Sankara, he did what all liberation movements are supposed to do, which is to decolonize symbolically the image of the country, which was called Upper Volta, and you called it now Burkina Faso, the land of people of integrity, the land of upright people. Very quickly, we'll go through the things that Thomas Sankara fought. A lot of you would have heard them because in the EFF were also inspired by leaders like Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara was against corruption. The first thing Thomas Sankara did when he entered, he ordered all his ministers to say, we are not going to drive in expensive cars. We're not going to get special VIP treatment. We're not going to go to private hospitals. We're not going to go to private schools. If you are a government official, you must use public services. And it's the only way that we are going to improve our public service sector. It's an argument of the EFF to say that until the child of the Minister of Health goes to a public hospital, the public health care system of South Africa will never be resolved. Because why must the Minister of Health resolve public health when their child is going to a private hospital? Why must the Minister of Basic Education fix our basic schools in the township, in the rurals, when they send their kids to private schools? They are not going to do it because they are fine, their kids are in private schools. Why must the Minister of Higher Education and Training care about rural universities, black universities, former black universities, if they take their students to white universities and white institutions? So Thomas Sankara made the argument to say, if you are a public servant, you must use public services. You must drink the water that our people are drinking. You must wear the clothes that our people are wearing. You must have the same experience so that when there is a problem, you are able to deal with it quickly, because if you don't fix this Paraguana in Soweto, it is likely that when your child goes there, there are going to be problems for your own child. So Thomas Sankara stood for that. Thomas Sankara also stood for the nationalization of the mineral resources of Burkina Faso. It's an argument of the EFF yet again to say that why must we take our resources, sell them at lesser rates to the West, where they get to be refined, where they get to be processed, where they get to create new products, and then they must sell those products back to us at much higher rates. We have a problem of youth unemployment here in South Africa. If we do not nationalize the mines and create jobs for young people to go into the mines, to refine, to process whatever mineral resource that we're doing, to own the land and all the economic heights of the economy, we're never going to resolve the problem of youth unemployment in South Africa. So immediately when Thomas Sankara came in, he took the decision to say the people must share in all the land and wealth of Burkina Faso. When Thomas Sankara came in again, and I'm rushing through, he was very deliberate about the local production of goods and services. You know, in South Africa, comrades, and as young people, really, we must be able to reflect on this. There are very menial products which are still produced outside of South Africa and are sold to us. I mean, imagine a toothbrush. Are you telling me that there is no one in South Africa who can produce a toothbrush locally? What must you learn? I mean, what cause, what is it that can make it so difficult for us to produce washing rags, for argument's sake? Simple things like washing rags, things that we use at a daily basis. You'll find that a lot of them are produced by multinational corporations and are sold to South Africa. So if you want to resolve the job problem of South Africa, part of what you must do is to localize your economy. In other words, let us support local and emerging markets. Let us encourage our young people to produce locally and sell amongst ourselves. So Thomas Sankara stood for that, to say we're not going to have a situation where African people are permanent consumers and not producers. So Thomas Sankara wanted to create a population which is not only empowered to produce that which comes from the West, but which is also empowered to produce and not just consume what comes from the West. So Thomas Sankara fought very harshly against imperialism. He asked the question that, look at the plates that you eat. These grains of rice that you eat, the corn and the millet, that is imperialism. He said, why must the people of Burkina Faso import rice when we can make rice ourselves? In South Africa, we have a huge problem of chicken dumping, an economic concept called dumping, where you've got your Africa rainbows, maybe getting the word wrong, but your multinational American firms, which are dumping chickens here in South Africa. So, our KFC, comrade convener, a lot of them, the chickens are not even produced locally here in South Africa. And you ask yourself, we grow up in the villages, we grow up in the rural areas, growing, cultivating chickens is not a difficult thing to do. But because we don't have a government like Thomas Sankara that says we must be able to localize our economy, because he who controls your food controls you. That's why when the EFF says we want to nationalize land, we want to take the farms and share with the people, how they threaten you, comrades. They say if the EFF takes land, there is not going to be food in South Africa. And when you ask them, why won't there be food in South Africa? They say it's because it is the farmers who are Afrikaners who are producing food for South Africa. Complete nonsense that Thomas Sankara fought against. To say that this development is going to be state-led and it is the people of Burkina Faso who are going to produce their own rice, who are going to produce their own corn, who are going to produce their own food, so that they are not controlled by the West. Thomas Sankara also fought very harshly against the suppression of women in Africa. Thomas Sankara was one of the first leaders, if not the first, to elect a woman in his cabinet when he led as the president of Burkina Faso. Now you will know, Africa being a very conservative and traditional continent, women leadership is something that one would argue we battle with a lot, especially if you look at the composition of your African unions and also how many states, heads of states, are females and are males. So Thomas Sankara advocated to say there will never be a liberation of the people of Africa without the liberation of women. If you want to liberate Africa, you must first liberate the woman, and once you have liberated the woman, automatically you have liberated Africa. I think we can agree, Makawane, because even their house starts to glow and shine. Because you know, you find a beautiful mother, a beautiful lady, a wife, a girlfriend, for those of you who have side girlfriends, those of you who don't have. So when you liberate women, which was the argument of Thomas Sankara, you liberate the African continent. The last point, out of the many things that Thomas Sankara fought for, he fought against the huge load of debt. So there's a lot of debt that the African continent owes to the multinational corporations, your World Bank, your International Monetary Fund in the form of the IMF. Thomas Sankara said, why do we keep borrowing from these comrades? Because when you borrow from your World Bank, from the West, from the IMF, they get to dictate the economic policy of your country. Now, South Africa owes so much to the world that it cannot even pay the debt. We're just paying the interest rate. That's how much South Africa owes. And you comrades, if we were to localize it and bring it at a student level, imagine the number of students in South Africa who owe student debt. Now, student debt is a huge problem because when you owe, I think even you realize there are certain things you can't do because the nonsensical vice chancellors say to you, when you owe money, they can't give you your certificates. Then you must ask them a common sense question to say, okay, comrades, let's say I want to pay back these fees. Although we don't want to pay them back, by the way. But let's say we want to pay back the fees. If you are saying to me, SIHLE, you owe the university 100,000, therefore I cannot give you a degree. How am I going to go and get work when I don't have my certificate so that I can get a salary to be able to pay back this debt? It's basic common sense that the government of the ANC working together with the DA can't seem to comprehend. Why are you withholding these certificates? Because we are not going to pay this money. Like, what are you seeking to achieve? At least give us our degrees. Give us our certificates, and those who want to pay will be able to participate in the economy, get a living, get a salary, and be able to impart back to the economy. I'll just give you an example about student debt. But Thomas Sankara fought for the sovereignty not only of Burkina Faso but of the African continent, to say Africa cannot continue to be a slave to the West, especially a financial slave to the West. Now we come, comrades, to part one of the lecture for today. After we've painted this type of picture and the type of leader that Thomas Sankara was at the young age of 33, many of us are going to approach 33, and I don't think we would have achieved all these things that Thomas Sankara managed to achieve at such a young and tender age in his life. On the 15th of October, comrades, 1987, Thomas Sankara sought to discuss the state of affairs in Burkina Faso and a variety of other matters which were affecting the region. Now, this is a very important date in the history of betrayal in far as the African struggle is concerned. When Thomas Sankara called his comrades, of course, it's a small, intimate, sensitive meeting. It's not a big meeting. Those who record about it said he did not even have much security at the time because he was calling a meeting amongst his advisors to say, let us discuss the state of the region, let us discuss the state of Burkina Faso and what is to happen. Now, as the story is told, is that Thomas Sankara gathered his advisors, and around 4:15 p.m., they met at the headquarters. And when the meeting was about to start, 15 minutes later at around 4:30 p.m., Thomas Sankara started to hear gunshots outside the offices where he had the meeting. Now, Thomas Sankara, because he was a selfless leader, because he always put the people before him, he said to his comrades in the room, comrades, I think those people outside, they are looking for me. So let's not all wait here and hide, because they may come inside and kill all of us. At least allow me to go outside unarmed, put my hands in the air. Maybe they will arrest me. Maybe they will take me to exile. Maybe they will torture me or whatever. But at least I would have preserved you, comrades, and you'll be able to continue with the struggle to liberate the African continent. Of course, when Thomas Sankara came out, they were ready and prepared to kill him. And they shot him more than 7 times. And there were gunshots even under his arms to demonstrate that indeed he had his hands in the air. To say, comrades, I am unarmed. I am not fighting against you. I am fighting the colonial administration of France and Britain and all the colonial superpowers. But Thomas Sankara was gunned down, and even worse, they did not allow his comrades to survive. They even went inside the offices and gunned down all the people that he was meeting with. There was one person who survived. And it's a problem. You can't survive after such an incident. We ought to be able to ask questions. The person who survived goes by the name of Alona Torre. And as the history tells us, we get to learn that the person who survived was a close friend of a comrade called Blaise Compaoré. Blaise Compaoré, it's a French word, I may be saying it incorrect. And they closarize a comrade convener. Comrade Blaise Compaoré was the second in command of Thomas Sankara. Comrade Blaise Compaoré was the person where, when Thomas Sankara eats, they eat from the same dish. When Thomas Sankara drinks, they drink from the same drink. When Thomas Sankara goes home, they share the home space. They share everything. They were brothers because they even met at a very young age when they were busy with their activism. Comrade Blaise was the deputy president of Thomas Sankara, appointed by Thomas Sankara when he took over, because Sankara said, this is a comrade that I am willing to lead this project to liberate the people of Burkina Faso, to liberate the people of Africa. Come close to me, let us fight the imperialist agenda. Little did he know that he's bringing a snake right in the house, right next to him. So Thomas Sankara, when they tell the story, of course, at first Blaise denies it and says, look, I was sick, I was at home. But as they tell the story, and I'm fast-tracking, we get to learn that he was the brains behind the assassination of his own comrade who had appointed him as deputy president of Burkina Faso. Blaise Compaoré, a sellout of note, betrayer, who lives a project that he built himself. He formed it with his comrade. They led together. They did everything together. And then he connives to kill his own comrade because of love for money, love for self-seeking agenda, and trying to impress the West. One needs of Blaise Compaoré amongst us comrades. There are many Blaise Compaorés amongst us, and we must have a very sharp eye to be able to locate them. To say, can I trust this Blaise Compaoré next to me? Or is he conniving to kill this project that me and him have stood together to champion? So Thomas Sankara was killed by his own comrade. Of course, for Thomas Sankara, it's unfortunate because his betrayal led to death. But when we speak symbolically, not all Blaise Compaorés have the courage to pick up a gun and shoot and kill you. but they can connive to destroy a project that you have built together to liberate the people of Africa. So when we say you are a blouse compaore, we are not saying you have the courage to pick up a gun, because some of you are cowards, shame. We don't think you can do such. But we are saying you are a conniver, because you connive against your own project, you connive against your own comrades, you betray the mission that you were recruiting everyone else to participate in. You betray it, and you betray it and join other things for your own self-seeking agendas, for your own money-loving agendas. Anyamas. So when he was killed, comrades, Thomas Sankara, it was very unfortunate, because at the time Blaise Compaoré obviously was denying it. But we got to learn, because he was the deputy president, so immediately after Thomas Sankara passed away, he came in and he took over as president of Burkina Faso. And part of the early signs that were able to pick up, even before he confesses, by the way, just recently, and we'll get to that, he confessed that he was part of the people who connived the assassination of his own brother Thomas Sankara, to the point where he apologized to his family, he apologized to the people of Burkina Faso, and I think he's been sentenced to life, but he's very old now, and it's late, the time that he has confessed. But the early signs we see is that when he took over Burkina Faso, he started to reverse the gains of Thomas Sankara. Because when we were starting, we said that Thomas Sankara believed in the nationalization of the mineral resources of Burkina Faso. When Blaise Compaoré took over, immediately he led a privatization project in Burkina Faso to say that all these mines, all these farms, all this land, all these mineral resources that Thomas Sankara was saying must be shared amongst the people of Burkina Faso, we are now going to hand them over to private capital. He came and he reversed all the things that Thomas Sankara had said about the ministers, to say that the ministers must use public services. He came in, he reversed that. He started to lead a very elitist life. He started to have ministers who no longer cared about the needs and the material conditions of the people of Burkina Faso. So as early as that, we're able to see that this comrade was bought, not to just kill this guy, but to also undermine his revolutionary objectives. Because our biggest worry as revolutionaries is not so much death, because the death of an individual does not necessarily delay the struggle that we're engaged in. But our biggest worry as revolutionaries is that our death must not lead to the death of the struggle to liberate our people. So Thomas Sankara could have died, but I'm sure he would have been happy if his death led to the further liberation of the people of Burkina Faso. So that's what we're concerned about as revolutionaries. That's why we're saying, even if you don't kill us, we can call you a Blaise Compaoré if we feel like you want to sabotage our revolutionary objectives. Because what we are concerned by is the liberation of the people of Africa, is the liberation of our people. And if you compromise that, if you sabotage that, you are as good as having killed us. Because when you kill the struggle, you kill our future aspirations. So he came in, he reversed all those gains. We're now going to quickly jump to a second point I want to make before we come to the contemporary politics of South Africa. Because the lecture that I was asked to give was to say, what are some lessons that we can learn from liberation movements in Africa? But in particular, please tell the students of VAL who killed Thomas Sankara. So In 1972, comrades, let's suppose there's an pen in a notepad, Makawan. And it's like a political lecture, your rally. In 1972, there is a comrade called Amilcar Cabral. Amilcar Cabral was a revolutionary in Guinea-Bissau. Amilcar Cabral gave a speech at the funeral of one of Africa's leading Pan-Africanists, if not the father, or not, boys would probably be the father. Comrade Kwame Nkrumah. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard of that name before. Now, Kwame Nkrumah died, and Comrade Amilcar Cabral was called to come and give an address at the funeral of Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah is also the first president of independent Ghana. At the time, Ghana had degenerated after the death of the comrade Kwame Nkrumah. Because what had happened is that Comrade Kwame Nkrumah went to Asia on a state visit. To go to Asia on a state visit, and then he left his comrades to say, comrades, I'm going to Asia. I think they were going to debate Vietnam and many other geopolitical issues. And he left his comrades to run the affairs of Ghana. Because these are his comrades. These are comrades that he started the revolution with. These are comrades that he led the liberation of Ghana with. He said, comrades, please, I am just going to Asia. Little did Kwame Nkrumah know that when he arrived in Asia, Comrade Convener, he was informed by the Asian authorities to say, you are being overthrown there in Ghana. Your comrades have connived to lead some particular uprising. The military is taking over. They are now replacing you as the head of state, and they are putting a new president of the country. His own comrades of Kwame Nkrumah. When we fast forward the story, we then get to learn that he couldn't come back to Ghana because he feared for his life, he feared for his safety. So he went and ran to go hide in Guinea-Bissau, and that's where the relevance of Amilcar Cabral is. Oh, this one is better. I've been talking for long. So, Comrade Kwame Nkrumah fled and didn't go back to Ghana after his own comrades had overthrown him and started to lead a counter-revolutionary agenda in Ghana when he had went to go visit in Asia. He spent a lot of years in exile, where he eventually died and passed away. Now, the relevance of what I'm telling you speaks to the subject that Amilcar Cabral spoke about at the funeral of Comrade Kwame Nkrumah. Because the rumor that was going around when Comrade Kwame Nkrumah died is that Kwame Nkrumah died because of throat cancer. So that's what they were saying. No, Kwame Nkrumah died because of throat cancer, and all of that. So when Amilcar Cabral took platform in Kwame Nkrumah's funeral, the first point he made was that Kwame Nkrumah did not die of throat cancer, but Kwame Nkrumah died because of the cancer of betrayal. That's the point that Comrade Amilcar Cabral made. Why? Because Kwame Nkrumah led the struggle with these comrades. Kwame Nkrumah led the liberation of the first African country, or one of the first African countries, with these comrades. He then goes on a state visit, and because these comrades have been bought, because they've been captured by the imperialist forces, they turn against him, they replace him, in other words, they betray him, and is unable to go back to the country that he led and liberated. He must go and hide in neighboring countries until he dies there. And when he dies there, his comrades say he died of throat cancer. Amilcar Cabral says, never. This comrade died because of a cancer of betrayal. Because betrayal is a cancer. And if we don't cut the cancer early, it's going to spread out all over. So Comrade Amilcar Cabral makes a few points at the funeral of Comrade Kwame Nkrumah to say that however our tears should not drown the truth. We may mourn the death of Comrade Kwame Nkrumah, but we must be able to speak the truth. He says that we as freedom fighters are not weeping the death of a man, even of a man who was a champion in the struggle and an exemplary revolutionary. For as President Amise Kotore often says, what is man before the infinite and transcendent becoming of peoples and mankind? He says, nor are we weeping and mourning for the Ghanaian people, whose finest accomplishments, whose most legitimate aspirations are smothered and destroyed. Nor are we weeping for Africa's betrayal, but we are weeping with hatred for those who were capable of betraying Nkrumah in the most ignoble service of imperialism. So he tells his comrades to say, we are not weeping the death of this man. Remember when we spoke about Thomas Sankara, we said, as a revolutionary, the biggest fear we have is not necessarily death. Because we know, even you comrades, as young as you are, there is a lot of struggle that you engage in at a campus level that exposes you to prison. You may be arrested in your protest action. You may be suspended from the university. You may be expelled from the university. But we have seen that there are even students in the phase of struggle who even lose their lives. So, as a young person who has committed themselves to struggle and revolution, we're of the understanding that on the way we may meet death. But that does not become the reason of our weeping and mourning. But what we mourn is when our own comrades then betray the struggle even beyond our death. Because the struggle must always continue. The struggle must always continue and it must never be betrayed. So Amilcar Cabral makes this point at the funeral. And he says that we must, however, draw the lessons from all the events. Even at this moment of grief, we must ask ourselves some questions, the better to understand the past, live the present, and prepare for the future. For example, what economic and political factors made the success of the betrayal of Ghana possible? Despite Nkrumah's personality, despite Nkrumah's courage, despite Nkrumah's positive action. He says, true, imperialism is bad. Imperialism is unscrupulous. But we must not lay on all the blame on its broad back. For us, as the African people, there is a saying which says, rice only cooks on the inside the pot. So the point that Amilcar Cabral is making is say, yes, we understand we're fighting colonialism, we're fighting the system, we're fighting the structure, we're fighting racism, we're fighting classism, we're fighting all these struggles that we're engaged in. But he says, as activists who are engaged in the struggle, we must also have an appreciation that rice only cooks inside the pot. In other words, what accountability can our own comrades, or rather, people that we call our comrades, what role do they play in delaying and also contributing in the destruction of the struggle that we're engaged in? So he's sitting there, he's speaking to all these comrades who were part of the betrayal of Comrade Kwame Nkrumah to say, we must not be quick to want to say this problem is going to be thrown to imperialism. But as revolutionary activists, we must also introspect in the role we play in the destruction of our revolutionary project. Because there are people who even want to blackmail us now when we call them traitors and betrayers. And then they say to us, no, we must all unite, and then we must go and fight the ANC and the DA, and we must be a progressive what, and we must caucus each other. yes, we are fighting the DA, the ANC, and the government of national unity. But as revolutionaries, we must also say, even inside this progressive caucus, rice only cooks inside the pot. What are these comrades who are in the so-called progressive caucus? What role are they playing in the distraction and the delaying of the struggle that we're engaged in? Comrades, as no plot up as by two, sinokole, can't you are busy, you are looking at my person next to me. We're busy here, we're plotting, how are we going to wage this struggle? In the middle of us caucusing each other, you are looking, who can I take from that side of SIHLE? You are poaching, you are engaged in a permanent poaching. But when we then call accountability, you say, no, we must come together, we're fighting the government of national unity. As young people of the EFF, we must be bold enough to say, if this progressive caucus does not make sense and work for us, we reject the progressive caucus. We don't want the progressive caucus if it is not willing to take individual accountability, if it is not willing to take responsibility for delay of the struggle. Sisavana Makabani. This mathematics that we are teaching here, it makes sense. So, he says these points, and I won't read everything that was here. But the point that he makes was that this comrade did not die from a cancer of the throat, but he died from a cancer of betrayal, because even after his comrades had betrayed him, they even followed him to the other country, and now there are even rumors that potentially he could have even been poisoned. So he says Comrade Kwame Nkrumah died from a cancer of betrayal. Now, what does all of this mean for us as young activists of the EFF? What does it mean when we say this movement is not going to die from a cancer that comes from anywhere, but the only thing that threatens our movement is a cancer of betrayal? What does it mean for us as young people of the EFF? It means that we can never accept an argument which says to us, those who claim to have formed the EFF, those who claimed to have arrived in the EFF in 2013, those who claimed to have drafted the documents of the EFF, those who claim to have formed part of the conceptualization of how the EFF operates and how it engages in struggle, they can simply wake up and decide to abort that struggle, and we must just be okay with that. We refuse to be okay with that. We are never going to be okay with that. It's a cancer of betrayal. So, as young comrades of the EFF, we must be able to raise these issues very sharply. To say that, yes, our leaders may be willing to tiptoe around these questions. Yes, our leaders may want to be diplomatic about these questions. But we can never accept someone who just wakes up in the morning and takes a decision that after having recruited you, imagine this comrade of the coordinator now and the convener. They've recruited all of you first years here in this campus. They recruit you, they give you the constitution of the EFF, they give you the politics of the EFF, they tell you the founding principles, they give you all the cardinal pillars, and they just wake up someday and say they are joining a different political party. And you must just accept their explanation because it's their personal choice. We are not engaged in politics of personal choice here. We are in the struggle. You don't chop and change the struggle. My girlfriend, I'm also Tandalo. You must stay on the course. So when we characterize these individuals, we must be able to characterize them along the lines of the comrades that Kwame Nkrumah had left behind in Ghana to say, I'm coming back, please preside and look over my affairs. And when he came back, they overthrew him and took over his seat. We must characterize them along the lines of comrades like Blaise Compaoré, who were sitting next to them, who they led with this person, and then connived to assassinate them so that they can take over their seat as president of Burkina Faso. We must characterize them like those Mpimbis during apartheid, like Cyril Ramaphosa's father, who was a police officer during apartheid, who would go around communities trying to find out who is an activist, who is planning a protest, and go and tell the government of apartheid. That's how we ought to characterize these people. Because they sit with us in our meetings. They even call their friends to come and join our organization. Comrades, you know this thing is just wrong. Someone recruits someone to join the EFF. The person that they've recruited participates in our meetings as the EFF. Not just any meeting. Highly sensitive, highly confidential meetings of the EFF that are discussing the strategy of elections. You comrades know we had the Central Elections Task Force, we had the Provincial Election Task Force, were task forces that sit to discuss how are we going to attack these elections, where are we going to close, where are we going to reinforce. You go, you fetch people, you invite them to join our organization. They sit amongst us in our meetings. They listen to what we're talking about. They listen to our tactics. They listen to our strategy. And then we wake up. These people that you invited to join our movement, they are inviting you to join their movement. Kanji, what is happening here, comrades? We are not children. We are not children. How do you tell someone, come and join the EFF? They come, they join the EFF, they listen. Okay, the EFF is planning this. After elections, this person leaves the EFF, goes to the other party, and then the person that you recruited goes and recruits you and say, come and join this party that you recruited me from. So it shows that this is what we talk about when we say we're dealing with an infiltration. Or the branch is saying transport is going to be provided, people must not be worried. I'm almost done. No balloon, the transport is there, fighters. So we're dealing with a serious infiltration in our movement, where we have just allowed people to enter our movement, to listen to our politics, to listen to our strategy and tactics, and to recruit our leaders to form part of their political organizations. It's an infiltration, it's a cancer of betrayal. There's a betrayal here from the sound team. Comrades, we must never listen to any justification which seeks to present the MKP as an alternative political party to the EFF. It's not possible. You can't, as a young person, a young activist who believes in the future of South Africa, who believes in crafting a vision that incorporates young people in South Africa, who believes in crafting a vision that will lead to the liberation of youth in particular in South Africa. You leave a young and energetic organization and you go and join an organization that is led by an 82-year-old. But you were telling us that you want more youthful representation. You were telling us that we need younger ministers. You were telling us that we need younger members of parliament. You were telling us that this Gwete Mantashe is too old, his stomach is big, ANC MPs are sleeping in parliament. You leave the energetic organization of youthful people who are waking people up in parliament, who are allowing young people to be more interested in the politics of South Africa. You leave that organization and you go and join an organization of an 82-year-old that does not have headquarters. Headquarters are in Kandla, in Linyake. You go there and you want us to believe that you have taken the most revolutionary decision. You want us to believe that the decision you have taken is a decision that is led by ideas. Okay, let's say the decision is led by ideas. The EFF has a constitution, the EFF has a founding manifesto, the EFF has guiding fathers, guiding pillars, the EFF has a set of principles which guide its strategic and tactical objectives. You leave that, you go and join an organization without any documents. Even worse, when you enter, they say, good shot, you are now going to write everything for this political party. All the constitution, the documents, everything, just come and write. And you want to convince the youth of South Africa, students. Remember, part of the reason why the EFF is appealing to young people is because young people are not easily tricked. Young people, you can't just talk to them and they believe something even if it doesn't make sense. That's why in the campuses across South Africa, the leaders of the ANC can bring t-shirts, can bring KFC, can bring everything, food, artists, but people still eat the KFC of SASCO and vote for the EFF Students' Command. Because young people are not easily tricked and manipulated like that. So if you are a leader, you can't manipulate us as young people and say that you are joining out of revolutionary principle because we have not seen a document from that political organization. The documents are here. The ideas are here. And then you come to us and you say, no, this party of the EFF, and this is what the media wants to make all of us to believe, and we must be able to rebut it as young people. No, this EFF is led by a dictator. No, this EFF is a one-man show. Comrades, Ratanang has never sat in front of a press conference in the EFF. The son of the commander-in-chief, you have never seen him. Some of you don't know what he looks like. But Dudu Zuma sits in front. You don't even know what is her position. She's just there. Hello, Commander. How Commander Dudu? The guy takes the children, puts them to lead the organization. They sit in front. They address you, comrades. And then someone says to us, I'm joining this thing because this one is not a dictatorship. This one is a dictatorship. But this one has never taken its family members to preside over the meetings of the EFF. This one has never brought an uncle. This one has never brought his son to say that after this my son is going to take over, after this my son is going to parliament. He has never done that. But we must be told that this one is a dictatorship and this one is a democracy. What type of nonsense is that? So these are the type of questions that we must be able to ask as young people and the students of South Africa, to say that there is no argument that anyone can try to come and manipulate us with, to convince us that there is something that the EFF is systematically doing wrong, and there is an alternative to the EFF that they are busy and they are doing it right. Comrades, like I said earlier on, the EFF has headquarters. Headquarters that belong to the EFF, that don't belong to the individual. Many of you don't know Commander-in-Chief where he stays, when the EFF calls its meetings, we go to Winnie Mandela House, named after a struggle icon, not named after a leader of the EFF. And then we must be told that we are a dictatorship, but someone leaves an organization that has its own identity outside of the individual, an organization that has its own headquarters, an organization that has its own brand, its own image. He goes together with the cows, goes to Nkandla to sit organizational meetings And that person must tell us that we are a dictatorship and he has joined a democratic and revolutionary project. So there must never be any confusion amongst comrades of the EFF Students Command, amongst fighters of the EFF Students Command, amongst the youth of South Africa. We as young people of the EFF, we have a responsibility to protect this movement from the cancer of betrayal. We have a responsibility to say anything that is not red is an opposition to the EFF. Anything that contests us on the ballot is an opposition to the EFF. We are not going to be friendly with an opposition. And in our campuses, there is no such a thing as a progressive caucus. So, you comrades must defend this organization. Because all of you are being put in a corner, being made to feel bad for asking genuine questions. To say, why are we in a progressive caucus with these people? Because it seems like these people are in a mission to destroy the EFF. When someone leaves the EFF, these people are the first ones to celebrate. When people leave the EFF, these people are the first ones to open their arms and welcome all the rotten potatoes of the EFF. And then we must be told that we must be in a progressive caucus and alliance with these people. Why must we accept that? What is progressive about someone who is engaged in a project to infiltrate and destroy the EFF? So this must be a discussion that you, as young activists, as young fighters of the EFF, are able to raise very sharply. Comrades, we are not in parliament. We have no interest of being there. That's why we must be able to reject things of parliament if they don't make sense to us. To say that we hear you there, you are busy pretending, clapping hands, singing together, but these people are engaged in a project to try and dilute our struggle. At the University of Free State, the SG had to release a letter to inform our fighters, because these guys opportunistically can see that the national leadership maybe before had a very non-hostile relationship. So when they want to enter your campuses, they are first going to enter and pretend that, no, comrades, we are one thing. Your mother body is working together in parliament, therefore even here at the campus level, let us work together. You comrades must be able to stand up and say, I don't care what they are doing in parliament. Here in our institutions of higher learning, it's EFF Students Command or nothing. We rather lose on our own, we rather win on our own, but we are not in any alliance with MK, with SASCO, or any other opposition political party. So we must not allow the dilution of our organization at the campus level. Because the EFF has managed to capture the imagination of youth and young people in South Africa. If you saw the turnout in May, and it even happened here in Vaal, where all of you were standing in long lines in the voting districts, even when the IEC tried to sabotage you by delaying the voting process, all of you said, I am not leaving this line until I vote for the EFF. So these comrades have seen that. So they've decided that if they want to cripple the EFF, they are going to target the EFF Students Command. We must say not in our names, over our dead body. We will never allow them to infiltrate the EFF Students Command. We will never allow them to kill the EFF using the EFF Students Command. So that is the long and short, comrades, to what we came to do here today. We didn't come here to speak for long. We didn't come here to give long lectures that are overcomplicated, that are over-complex. We came here with a simple message to say that we must be able to identify betrayal. We must be able to identify infiltration. And we must be able to close ranks as young activists of the EFF and say we don't care what the old people are doing. We are going to defend our organization. And we are not going to protect anyone that is not a member of the EFF. That is what we came here to say, comrades, to you. To say, continue to work the ground, continue to defend this movement in your campuses, continue to defend this movement in your communities, continue to defend this movement both in public and in private, because we are the future of the EFF, and because we are the future of the EFF, it means that we are the future of South Africa. So as I close, comrades, we want to thank all of you for coming out to come and engage and share ideas with us. Like I said, it was not a lecture, we were sharing ideas and we are exchanging notes. And we are reaffirming our position that we are not going anywhere, we remain the EFF. They thought that when they resigned, many people are going to follow. They failed in their mission to destroy the EFF. We are not following them, we are remaining. Those who want to leave must leave. They will find us here in the EFF. We did not join an individual, we joined the EFF. We read the founding manifesto of the EFF. We read the 7 non-negotiable pillars of the EFF, and that is what we joined. So no one must tell us that we are in some progressive alliance with anyone. There must never be any confusion now. When they tell you there's a progressive caucus, you must say in the student command that language does not exist. In the EFF Students Command, it's EFF or nothing. In the EFF Students Command, it's EFF or death. Those who want to do a caucus, they can do it far from us there in Parliament, but in our institutions of higher learning, we are not in a progressive caucus with anyone. So don't be discouraged, comrades. Don't feel like we must now mourn the departure of this one and that one. There is someone here who calls himself the former president of the Student Command. He never even finished his term. He went to go and be a party agent of Donald Trump in America. By the time he came back, he was replaced. The SG was the president and the SG. And then he wakes up in the morning and says, I'm resigning as a member of the EFF. I called the regional secretary of Tshwane. I said, Comrade RS, someone have resigned. They sent a letter to the SG. The RS goes through her documents. He says, no, but this person has not been a member of the EFF for many years now. I said to the SG of Student Command, maybe he's not a member of the EFF, but maybe he joined the EFF Student Command, we didn't know. Can you please call the national administrator of the EFF Students Command and ask him to check if this comrade is represented in our database. The SG of the Student Command comes back to me and says, we can't find this comrade in our database. So who and what was he resigning from? Because now nobodies are just going to wake up, oh makwapeni available for but is a resign at the EFF, but they've never been members of the EFF. They want to create a media jamboree. They want to create a media chaos to create an impression that people are leaving the EFF. No one is leaving the EFF. These comrades have long left the EFF. They left us before elections. They left us before last year. They were never with us on the ground. So when they leave now, the only thing we must say is good riddance. So if there are others who want to join them, no one is going to be begged to be part of the EFF. Because when you were signing that membership form, you said that I voluntarily joined the EFF. So we are not going to beg anyone to remain in the EFF, but we are going to remain committed to the EFF because the EFF is an organization of tomorrow. Any organization that attracts young people, you must know that that organization has longevity. That organization is going to live long. So Makabane, let us remain focused. Let us not be shaken. SRC elections are coming in the Vaal University of Technology. We don't want a coalition with anyone here. We want to win majority of the seats, Comrade Convener. We don't want to negotiate with anyone. We want to win everything in the Vaal University of Technology. They are scared, comrades, of the EFF Students' Command. For the first time in the history of South Africa, where you can find Parliament, a portfolio committee of Parliament, with all the problems that are confronting students in South Africa, a portfolio committee of Parliament calls a meeting to discuss SRC elections. Where does a portfolio committee enter in SRC elections? Because Parliament should be discussing policy for higher education. They should be telling us, how are we going to clear student debt? How are we going to fund free education? How are we going to fix the problems of NSFAS? How are we going to fix the problems of student accommodation? They leave all of those burning issues in higher education and they discuss SRC elections. Even worse, they say SRC elections must now be run by the IEC in all campus in South Africa. They are mad. We must never allow that. IEC stole our votes in May. We can't allow them to come to our campus and steal our votes. So remain focused fighters. In the University of Free State, we won the SRC elections there. In Northwest University, Mafeking campus, we won SRC elections there. The preliminary results of the Tshwane University of Technology are telling us that we have taken Central SRC. Even here in the Vaal, we must repeat and take Central SRC. We must take everything. We must not share with anyone. We must continue to defend our gains. Amanda! Viva EFF Students Command, viva! Viva EFF Students Command, viva! Futek Sasko, Futek! Futek Sasko, Futek! Futek MK, Futek! Futek MK, Futek! Futek Sadesmo, Futek! Futek, Futek, Futek! Long live the Commander-in-Chief Julius Silo Malema, long live! Long live the Commander-in-Chief Julius Silo Malema, long live! Long live the fighting spirit of fighters of the EFF, long live! Long live the fighting spirit of the EFF Students' Command, long live! Amanda!